Today we're going to be taking a look at another Evercade cartridge. This is cartridge number 21, the Intellivision Collection one, otherwise known as the Intelligent Television Console. Only smart people played the Intellivision. I guess I'm pretty dumb because I had an Atari 2600 back in the day. Never played an Intellivision before, but this collection on this cartridge for the Evercade has 12 classic games from the Intellivision. So these games are all going to be, older games from around the 80s or so, as the Intellivision originally came out in 1979. It was a competitor to the Atari 2600. In today's video, I want to talk about each game on this collection, give you guys my thoughts real quick, show you some footage of each game in action. And I like these cartridges the way they come, with a little manual and a case and all that. Really good stuff. Today we're going to be showing footage from the Evercade VS console, from this being played on that. But for me, some people with the Evercade, they're going to collect every single cartridge, and that's fine. I mean, the cartridges are only like 20 bucks each. But some cartridges are definitely not going to be for everyone. And I think this Intellivision cartridge really speaks to people who grew up with the Intellivision. It's cool for me to check these games out, as most of them I've never played before. I have played a little bit Intellivision through emulation in the past, but haven't played most of these. So this is kind of a first for me. Now, I do have a hard time going back to games from the early 80s anyway with some of these consoles. With the Atari 2600, that was my first console. There's very few games that I can go back to because I don't feel they hold up as well to today as stuff like from the NES and moving forward does. Now, it's partly the simplified graphics, the sound. Really took a lot of imagination to get into some of these games. But when that's all we had back in the day, it was amazing. We didn't know anything else. So nostalgia definitely plays a role in people continuing to enjoy these types of games. I think people who never had them before or started gaming in later generations may not appreciate them for what they are. Now, not every game here really tickled it for me, you know what I'm saying? But a few of them I thought were pretty good. So I'm just going to go in order of the way they're listed on the console by title. So I started off playing Astro Smash. Now, Astro Smash is a pretty simple game, but it's fairly fluid with the controls. You got like asteroids, I guess, flying at you, space junk or whatever. And most of these games are going to be high score type stuff. You're just trying to get a high score, challenge yourself or challenge somebody else type of thing, see how far you can get. And that's pretty much how this one is. Pretty basic. You're shooting these space junks coming at you, getting a higher score. The further you move along in the game, the faster things move, the more asteroid type things are flying at you. If they hit the ground, they do take away points from your score. As long as you're shooting them, shooting whatever is flying at you, you keep accumulating points. After a while, the level does change the background color, but not much else to it. I did enjoy this one, even though it is pretty basic. Now, moving on, the next one was Buzz Bombers. Another similar type game. You play as like a big-ass spray can of poison, I guess, killing these poor little bees. So innocent. I mean, violence in video games going all the way back to the 80s here, killing these innocent animals, right? Now, you're spraying these bees, and that's all you're doing. They move a little faster over time. There's like a little hummingbird type thing that be flying around. I don't know what the point is. I try shooting it, but the controls are, they're basic, but they're kind of not very responsive for me, and it is a little annoying with the hit detection in this game. Definitely prefer Astro Smash over this one, as they are both similar types of games. Moving forward, the next one was Frog Bog. You're a frog on a bog, hopping around, eating dragonflies and whatever else, right? Another high score thing. 2-player game, jump back and forth, pretty simple, left and right, collecting flies. I know there's other games that are fairly similar to this out there. It's kind of boring, but it's also one, if you really like this style of game or you grew up with it, you really have to have your timing down to eat the flies and dragonflies, whatever's coming at you, sucking them up, right? It's definitely one of skill. It takes a little effort to figure out how the timing should be. It's not horrible, but for me, it was just kind of boring. Now, next up was Night Stalker. I know a lot of people enjoyed this game back in the day, and I kind of have a feeling maybe if I played this on the original console with the original controller, I would have enjoyed it more. You're just running around. You're in a maze, and there's like a robot coming at you, going after you, shooting his lasers at you, or his gun, whatever it is. You have to go find a gun that somebody just dropped on the floor somewhere and go destroy them. Just keep getting your points accumulating, right? This one I had a hard time with, as I think maybe with the disc on the original controller, it controlled a little better. With this one, it felt awkward trying to move the character around. Like sometimes I would get stuck or just continue along, moving in a direction that I wasn't pressing, type of thing. It was a little annoying. Maybe I just got to get used to it. But yeah, I think maybe this one just doesn't translate as well without the original controller. I could be wrong, but that's the impression I got. Now, the next one was Pinball. This is pretty competent for an older game that, released on a console like this as far as pinball games go. It's a very early pinball game. Came out in 1983, and the graphics and everything are pretty decent for its time. The physics behind it, everything, sometimes it does seem a little cheap where it's unavoidable. Ball's just gonna, fall through and you can't even hit it. And it happened to me more times than I would have liked. But overall, it is a decent game. I enjoyed it. There are 3 tables to play on as you progress, so not a bad one. Now the next one I think is the shining example of greatness on this cartridge here, if you will. One of the better games, my favorite game on this cart anyway, and that's Princess Quest. And figures that Princess Quest, because I booted it up without paying attention to the year on it at first, but it figures it's a newer game. It came out in like 2015 or so, and it has some very basic style graphics, but it does remind me of like Ghosts and Goblins in a way, whereas all these other games are single screen games, getting a high score. This one actually has you progressing through levels that actually change. They change their style, and you fight enemies and you fight bosses. Now the bosses are kind of cheap bastards, kind of hard to avoid getting hit. But overall, I really enjoyed this one. It's one I'll continue playing. I thought it was really cool. Definitely the highlight of this cartridge for me anyway. So moving on, next one was Shark, a pretty popular game and one that I actually really liked. Not my favorite. My favorite's Princess Quest, but Shark would probably be in the top 3 for me. You play as a little tiny fish, like living in a big fish's world, and you got to eat fishes that are smaller than you and get bigger so you can continually eat bigger fish and avoid getting eaten by sharks, right? Eaten by sharks, not eat by sharks. I can't speak the English anymore. But yeah, avoid getting eaten by sharks and things that are bigger than you. Simple, but the premise is cool. I could imagine when this originally came out back in, what was it? 1982, very early title. I could imagine this would have been a game I really enjoyed. It's simple, but it's fun. Has you on the edge of your seat trying to avoid getting eaten. It's a pretty cool one. Next up was Slapshot Super Pro Hockey. Probably one of my least favorites on the game. It's hockey. It plays okay, but I mean, it's a little clunky, a little hard to keep track of the players as well. Overall, it's not a bad game for an earlier sports title for a console like this, but it did come out in '87, and I think there were other games that had come out earlier or around then that kind of better than this, but you know what? Hey, who am I to judge? This is one of your favorite hockey games back in the day. You'll enjoy it here. Now, next up was one that's definitely up there on my favorites, and that's Snafu. My only problem with this one was at first I didn't realize which color I was, so I just instantly died. But essentially, you're just trying to trap the other snake-looking things that are, cruising around. You got to try to trap them as you're creating a wall, and that's pretty much it. Be the last man standing. I actually really enjoy it. It's fluid. Once you realize which color you are, it's pretty fluid and easy to play, and it's a lot of fun. The next one was Thin Ice. At first, I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do in this game, but the graphics are not too bad. The gameplay, once you understand what you're supposed to do, which is, it tells you what you're supposed to do. I guess I didn't really understand at first, but you're supposed to, mess with your penguin friends. He's such a dick, the character you play as. What was his name? You play as Duncan the Penguin. Yeah, he's an asshole. He just wants to dunk all his penguin friends. So you're just kind of cutting holes in the ice around them as they're dancing around, having a good old time, enjoying life. And then this jerk comes around and just drops them in the water. And you got to watch out for the seals and the polar bears. It's a decent one. Fun little game for sure. Next one was Thunder Castle. This one, I kind of had similar issues with, like I did with Night Stalker, where the controls just, I don't know, maybe it's just the game. It just didn't control very well for me. You have a dragon going after you as you're kind of going through a maze where the forest kind of goes in and out type of thing. Like there'll be certain areas where it just overgrows and then disappears. You're collecting items. There's a dungeon and a castle. It's an interesting one. Just kind of got to get used to the way it feels. As it's a little clunky for me. Not one of my top, favorite games here, but not too bad once you get used to it. Now the final one, Word Rockets, Learning Fun 2. If you needs to learn some simple 3-letter words or 4-letter words, this is the game for you. It's a shooter. You're shooting letters to create words as the words that are missing a letter float by. This is just like the peak level of funness on the Intellivision here. The Intellivision television, making you smarter as you play. That's what this game's about. I mean, if you're a younger kid, it's not bad. If you're an older kid, a teenager, a young adult, a grandpa, a grandma, whatever you are, I don't know, not that much fun creating words that are simple with letters. I mean, it's a little bit of a challenge, but yeah, it is what it is. Overall, this Evercade cartridge was not my favorite on the system, but I do see it being something a lot of people who grew up with the Intellivision or have some kind of nostalgia for some of these games will enjoy. I really liked Astro Smash, Princess Quest, Shark, and Snafu. So that's pretty good. Thin Ice isn't bad. So I have a handful of games here that I really enjoyed, and I'm sure other people will find more than what I did that they enjoy. So hey, it's all up to you. Just giving you guys my thoughts, letting you see the gameplay a little bit, especially if you're somebody like me who's never really played Intellivision. Gives you a good idea if you should pass on this one, if you want to have that hole in your numbering system on your cartridges, if you collect them, type of thing, or if you should just buy it. But hey, thanks for watching. Really do appreciate every single one of you guys. And with that said, I will catch you next time. Bye.